Oh, give it a second. Let's capture device. Okay, you guys are live.
Hey guys, I'm Sam Lighthammer from US Gamer, and this is our E3 morning show. Today I am being joined by Jeremy Parrish, our EIC.
Howdy.
And the guys from Discord Games, Dan, James, and Dan. And we're going to be playing Chasm. Jeremy?
Oh, is it over to me?
away.
Okay. Yeah, I really wanted to have the Discord guys on here because Chasm is a game that I've been following for quite a while. Like 2 years now, right? I backed it on Kickstarter. I've been checking it out at demos, trade shows and events and conferences for the past couple of years. And every time it comes along a little further. And you guys are launching pretty soon, right?
Hopefully towards the end of the year.
Towards the end of the year. So it's shaping up. I think it's fair to say. Certainly the demo I watched you guys playing has come a long way from the first time I saw it. So yeah, if you just want to talk a little bit about it before jumping in and showing what it's all about, that'd be great.
And also people who are watching in the chat, you feel free to ask away, ask questions. I'll be asking them. So
cool.
Let's do it.
So this is a platform adventure game. It's heavily influenced by Metroidvania games like Symphony of the Night, as well as some of our old school favorite games like Mega Man and Zelda and Metroid. And we also tried to bring something new to it with procedurally generated areas. So every time you start a new game, you're going to get a little bit different experience. And yeah, I guess that's kind of the...
So with the procedural generation, is it like the whole game is procedurally generated, or is it portions
It's kind of a blend.
It?
It's a blend. Like we're definitely approaching it like a classic adventure experience. We want it to feel like a fully handmade game, but at the same time, we want to work in the procedural generation as well. So there's certain events in the game and power-ups you always get in the same order, but the procedural generation comes more into play with the path to get there. You know, so it's not like I know the next room is going to be this or this.
Yeah, the whole concept of Metroid is that there's like this very thoughtfully designed world that's very carefully gated and really kind of you have to figure out your way through it, and there's not a lot of room for error. And the idea behind procedural generation is you kind of don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's like completely
so
random.
that's a really tricky balance to match up. And the only game I've really seen try that is maybe Rogue Legacy, and even that's a lot more straightforward. And its levels tend to be pretty straightforward in design as well. So yeah, could you talk a little bit about the challenge there? Because it seems like, from a design point, very, very difficult.
Yeah, it was by far the most complicated and difficult part of the project to get right, you know, especially for our standards, because we grew up on like incredibly well-designed games, you know. So to make something that like feels like it was intently put there and feels like it was paced accordingly with the difficulty level and how mechanics are being introduced to you, you know, enemies and all that, and feeling like the game's like progressing in a way that's constantly challenging you is very difficult. And you know, like I said, we spent most of our time like trying to figure that out, and there wasn't really a lot to look at. And actually, you know, when we started this, Rogue Legacy hadn't even been announced yet, so we went through quite a few evolutions to like get to where we are now, you know, to where somewhere where we're actually very happy with it and feel like, you know, we kind of broke some ground as far as bringing something new to the table.
Well, the idea of, you know, sort of a structured adventure that's always different a little ways every time, I think you guys are kind of a little bit ahead of the curve there, because that's become something really popular in the past few months with ROM hackers, taking classic Nintendo games like Metroid and Zelda and Final Fantasy VI and kind of running them through these things that just reshuffle everything in the game. So it's the game you know, but it's totally different and it's a different experience. So it's cool that you actually set out to design that from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good way of thinking about it, because I think when people hear procedurally generated, they think more like each room will be different every time you go into it, and like you never know what you're going to get. And it's actually, there's probably one way to think of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like there's a library of different rooms you can encounter, and all those rooms have been hand designed. It's just the order in which you may encounter them and which rooms you may encounter will be different. And so one of the big benefits of that is, like, you know, you can watch someone do a full playthrough of Chasm on YouTube or something, and when you play, you know, you're not necessarily going to know, like, oh, that guy went up and then to the left to get the thing. and that may not be the case for you. You may encounter many of the same rooms, but not all of the rooms that this other person played, but your experience will be different. And if you play again, same thing, you're not going to be like, oh man, I'm just speedrunning at this point because I know exactly where everything is. It's going to be different each time. If you do want to like refine your speed on one version of the game, there is a seed number, so if you just kind of write that down, or if you see somebody else play and you see their seed number, you can compare apples to apples and have the exact same world. But otherwise, it's going to be everything you encounter is going to be different from what everyone else gets.
I assume a big part of the process of creating this has been making sure that the kinds of rooms you encounter are appropriate for your current progression. Like, I don't know if there's a double jump ability, but you don't want a room that you can only get through with double jumping if you haven't gotten the double jump yet.
Yeah, and that was something we had to kind of decide on early on. It's like how integrated into the game are the abilities, because you can't just throw rooms in there and expect them to have to go through them, but they don't have the abilities to go through them. So we basically had to make a decision at some point, like, okay, these sections of the game are always going to be there. It's like you're always going to go and find the slide abilities. You can get to the next area that utilizes it. And I'm personally like one of those people that doesn't like, it's like, oh, here's the double jump. You just use it one time to get over this gap, and that's it. Like, all of our abilities are tightly integrated into the actual room designs. So, like, when you get the ledge grab, for instance, in the Catacombs, and you'll see when we play the demo, all the rooms pretty much in it utilize it. So it's more like, hey, here's a new ability. Now you have to master it to get through this next section. And we just constantly kind of unfold it like that. And of course, like, we have gates, so you can't get past a certain area until you get an ability to kind of hold them back. But that helped us actually, kind of segregate things and make sure that the player's not going to get in over their head before they need to.
I have to segue into gameplay because we do only have a short time to watch you play. Jamton, who's a backer, said, are we going to see new areas that were not in the alpha today?
Not today. So today we're showing off the Catacombs, the second area, and probably later this year we'll be revealing the third to everybody.
So you might be able to get a glimpse of the keep if I don't die on the last boss.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then PK Strawstorm says, for those of us who know nothing about you, can we get a quick history of who you are, what they've done before, favorite style, magazine, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So my partner Tim Dodd and I started Discord Games back in 2010, I want to say. And we released Take Arms on Xbox Live Indie Games in 2011, just as a side project. We were both programmers and wanted something fun to do in the evening, so we've worked on that for probably 2 years, released it on Xbox Live Indie Games, and it did fairly well, but it was kind of a bummer that we spent so much time on it, and it didn't do as well as we wanted. And we took a break for a few months, and I just kept thinking about, doing a platformer, and at one point I was playing Symphony of the Night again, and it's like, man, it'd be awesome if this was just a little bit different every time you played it, and that's just kind of how Chasm was born.
Great. And what about you?
So I'm the environment artist for this game. So just as a hobby, I've been doing pixel art since forever. For a while, pixel art kind of went away. Like some of my first jobs in the industry was at Gameloft and Glue Mobile before the iPhone. So that was like in a completely different era of mobile gaming that required pixel art still. But as soon as the iPhone hit, like everybody stopped using pixel art. So when James started working on Chasm, they were looking for really good pixel artists, and it just really struck a chord with me. So yeah, I decided to join.
Awesome. All right. So I guess unless you guys have anything else to say before we start, we should probably get playing.
Jump right in.
So this is actually starting out in the second area of the game. We kind of wanted to give people a new glimpse of something different. So.
So you said this is the second area. At this point in the game, what ability would you have naturally acquired?
So he has the slide. If he presses down and jump, you can see that. That gets you through some narrow gaps. You'll probably see some rooms actually in the Catacombs that utilize it too. There's some tight spaces and things. And this part right here, this first section right here, is one of the actually handmade sections of the game.
Okay.
And there'll be kind of sections like this throughout the game where I can kind of introduce things to you without like having them just appear randomly. So I can introduce new concepts and traps and make sure that people are going to see them in a more confined way, I guess.
And it's
Right.
not just from a mechanic standpoint either, it's also from a narrative standpoint. Having these kind of more set piece rooms
Yeah.
that are more static allows us to really handcraft them in a more beautiful way.
So there's some sort of environmental storytelling going on.
Yeah, we try to do that as much as we can, try to tell a lot of the story just in the art itself.
Yeah, and there's also, you'll find notes and different things as you go through the game. There is, I'm not going to say super deep, but there is a large backstory to the game, and it's not forced upon players. We like more of the kind of, if you want to learn more about the world, then you can read all these things, you can talk to people, but nothing is really scripted in the game where it's like they shoves plot points down your throat,
Right.
and that kind of stuff.
So is there like a leveling up system, experience points, and that sort of thing, or is it just you find pickups to gain extra health and
Yeah,
magic?
there is XP
Okay.
when you do level up. It's nothing too, complex. It's just kind of keeping your character in line with the enemies as they get harder.
And you've got the ever popular Dark Souls campfires
Yeah.
save points.
So this is the world map, and as James pointed out, that first world on the left that I just completed, that because of the ledge grab, that we wanted to make sure that the demo, you start off with that ledge grab right away. So that part is going to be the same every time when someone plays it. But this new map, or this second area right here, I don't necessarily know what is coming next, and I've been in this room before, but I don't know what's coming after this room, for example. So
Okay.
that's an example of how the procedural generation works. So I know how this room gets structured, so I know how to get past this room, but I don't know, I didn't know this guy was going to be here.
And who is this guy?
So there's actually a number of NPCs in the game that you can kind of rescue. Part of the story is that everybody in the town up on the surface has disappeared when you first get to the town.
Oh, okay.
And so basically you head down in the mines to figure out what is going on, and you start running into some of these people, and as you rescue them, they kind of return back to town, and then you can interact with them, talk to them, and some of them have shops and things, or they perform services for you. So that guy that he just rescued, though, is who we call the Scavenger. He's just a crazy old guy that roams through the dungeons collecting treasure. And once you rescue him, he'll show up in the save rooms with the campfires, and he'll always have like an assortment of random items that he's recovered.
Cool.
You can purchase.
And I guess you can pick up new weapons from enemies, random drops, and that sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah, there are. Each enemy has kind of a random drop that they can drop.
I have a question. How did, for you, Dan,
Yes.
choose, no, other Dan?
Oh,
Sorry.
You can call me Fez if you want to distinguish.
Choose like the color palette, like when you were
Actually,
designing.
that was definitely that was the first thing that I did when I joined the project, and it's still kind of an ongoing process. We wanted to nail the color palette. We did kind of like this. You see this a lot in movies where they'll do this kind of chroma kind of key for the entire length of the movie to try to have a progression of color throughout. And we wanted each area to have a very distinct palette to it, to where at any given time you immediately feel not only a different mood, but you just recognize where you are, and just feel like the game is constantly evolving. So it tends to just go across the entire spectrum. This is a heavily brown and yellow based environment. We have others that are more cold and blue and dark. And the other thing that we were trying, that was a very difficult thing to balance in the palette, is since none of our sprites actually have outlines or anything like that, we always had to make sure that priority read right. So a lot of our backgrounds are darker, while the sprites are a little brighter and can stand out at all times.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's something that you definitely notice. I mean, and that's what I think the feeling like you're in a different level in a different place, and feeling the progression of the game is really important. So.
Yeah, a lot of games do retro pixel art, but very few of them are authentic about it.
Right.
Yeah.
That was very important to us. We didn't want to just be the fad of pixel art, but we actually wanted to take, a lot of notes from the games that we love from the past, like some of the really good classics, like Metal Slug, for example. Brilliant pixel art, and we wanted to do the medium like service, and so everything about the game is very pure to the medium.
CyberRank 10 has a question. Can we refine or enchant our weapons and equipment?
Yeah, so right now there's elemental gems you can collect. We have 5 elements, you know, the basics like fire and lightning, ice, all those. When you find the gems, there's a guy on the surface actually that you can rescue. If you take the gems to him, you can add them to your equipment, and you can basically give the elemental damage to your weapons. So for instance, if you find a ruby, add it to a sword, it becomes kind of like a fire sword of sorts. So we definitely wanted some customization in there for players to kind of play around with things like that. And we're also planning on unique kind of drops that you can get where they'll already come, you know, with different kind of elemental damages and like +1 type things.
So I have a question actually. This is the boss, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I know you said the game is procedurally generated. In this level, is this always going to be the boss?
Yeah, actually this is a mini boss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he'll always be guarding the entrance that he's about to get to after this.
Assuming I that's
Yeah. Come on, man, you can do it.
no pressure.
You got your favorite weapon.
Yeah.
If you were to sort of peg the art style as belonging to any particular, like referencing a particular platform or era, what would you say?
I would say it's kind of in the same world as the Super Nintendo style, but palette-wise, it's a lot more grounded and a lot more earthy than what the Super Nintendo could ever do. So
Right.
it's a lot more modern pixel art in terms of the palette.
Yeah,
but resolution and density, more Super Nintendo.
There's something about it that reminds me of GBA, actually.
Okay,
Maybe
yeah,
it is the
for
color
sure,
palette
yeah.
because
That
you know
makes sense.
GBA was kind of a little bit washed out, and I'm not saying this looks washed out, but you do have the chroma key.
No, that is actually a pretty good.
So
analogy, for sure.
yeah, like that's kind of the sort of last hurrah for great pixel art in you know, mainstream consoles. So it's cool to sort of build off of that.
Well, it's kind of interesting because we come up with our own restrictions. Like, you know, because if you're developing an old console, it's just this is your palette,
Right.
these are your colors, work with them. But so we have the capability of choosing from millions of colors to define our palettes from. But I think it gives us a lot more flexibility. But at the same time, you're still restricting yourself to kind of get that same look to it. You know.
By the way, I deliberately died to say, so this is actually a good way of demonstrating some of the things we were talking about, the procedural generation of the world. So if for people who are kind of paying attention to the first playthrough, you'll notice that this area here is the same as when I was playing through it the first time. So everything is in the same place to get that ledge grab. But once I clear out of this room, you get the same kind of stuff, and there's the same general layout. And once I go through here, they'll notice, hopefully, that it will be a pretty different layout of what I'm going to encounter. So I'm trying to remember exactly what I encountered last time here, but
Yeah, this demo is actually a little bit more confined than the full game, so we have a lot more rules to kind of keep it more shorter and concise.
Sure.
So.
So basically, when you start a game, that's not when your seed is generated. It sort of builds on the fly.
Yeah, actually, it generates the whole world. Like as soon as you start the game, based off of your seed, it kind of lays out the whole world for you.
Okay.
So, yep. And then you can, give the seed to a friend if they want to play the same exact version as you.
So in the final game, if you die, you're not going to encounter a new area than you.
No. Yeah, it's
Okay.
not like fully roguelike like that, where everything just changes constantly. So it's and like for instance, if he rested at the campfire and then died, it would basically just reset back to when he saved.
Okay.
And then everything would be the same, but it would be like he never played.
Johnny Pants 7 says, "I'm sorry I came in late. Do you get a different weapon with each new game, and how many weapons are there?"
There's a lot of different weapons. You do start the game with you always start the game with like the short sword, but from there it kind of like branches out. We have 5 main classes of weapons right now. You have fist-based weapons. You either go bare knuckle or find like brass knuckles and different things. Knives, which are quick and do a decent amount of damage. The one-handed swords, like he's using now. The great weapons he had before, like when he was fighting the Wraith mini-boss, and those give you like a bigger range, like a swing and stuff. And then also whips. So this is
My personal
5
favorite
moves.
is the whip.
And Sorry, no.
Oh no, I was just gonna say we tried to put like a good variation in there though, where each class of weapon kind of has like its own feel and strengths and weaknesses. So
Very cool. Cyberang10 says, is this awesome character on screen the only playable character?
yeah, Dalton is our only playable character. He's you know, kind of like our hero in a way. We chose not to go down the more generic, you know, dungeon crawler route where you could just be anybody. This is kind of a game where you kind of approach it like a classic adventure where you are this character and you get to see him progress as the game goes on.
So definitely a little bit of Mega Man here with the slide.
Yeah.
And I guess
I was just
Castlevania
thinking
with the
that.
spikes falling.
Yeah, it's just a lot of influences from a lot of our favorite games kind of growing up, mashed together, and hopefully into something that feels fresh and different, even though it has a lot of callbacks to things that we love.
Seven Payne said about the level, I mean, at the beginning of the level with the spike balls that swing around, he said those look like the spiky aliens from Metroid for me. So
one thing to notice is that unlike, you know, a lot of Metroidvanias, there's where there's a lot of combat. There is a lot of combat in this game as well, but there's also a good mix of like platforming rooms and combat heavy rooms. So you kind of, hopefully, you know, the idea is that you never get sick of one type of gameplay, that there's always a variety that you can encounter.
Yeah, and that's tricky too, because it's like on our earlier builds when we released the alpha, it was very platform heavy, and you kind of have to strike this balance, because if you go too far, then it makes the world feel like very cumbersome to get through. You know, it's like it takes forever to get anywhere, especially if you want to backtrack and stuff. So that's been another thing that we've been like, you know, trying to find the right balance for our game. You know, what feels right, where we do have a good amount of platforming and it feels like you're really having to use all those skills, but at the same time, like, it's not too annoying if you need to, like, you know, go back somewhere.
I'm like watching you do this.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
Like, please don't die.
Yeah, I
I'm like,
know.
you got it this time. You got it.
You still have a potion too, right?
Yeah, I do.
Better use it.
Yeah.
All right.
This guy kind of reminds me of.
You're like watching him and you're like, use the potion. Use the potion.
Use the potion. Use the potion.
This guy kind of reminds me of the necromancer from Castlevania Circle of the Moon, and also Fantoon from Super Metroid. But like,
Yes.
I'm not saying, oh guys, you just ripped them off. It's just interesting to sort of see these influences and
Well,
how
you know,
you process them.
At some level, though, like, you just end up using the same things, because, like, I just came up with this guy on my own. Like, I'd never played Circle of the Moon. I'd never seen them. And I did, like, a sketch for him, and I sent it to our animator. And he's like, you know this guy's in Castlevania. I'm just like, no. It's always like that. Like, you know, the one time I think I'm original and I wasn't looking at anything, like, I just ended up using something that was in another game anyway.
It was archived in your brain somewhere and you just didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what happens, you know.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are there. I mean, like, you know, all these kind of tropes and things that you grow up with, like, are just kind of always in your subconscious. I think.
Yeah, and they just exist.
Yeah. And I just don't think, like, you can ever fully be original. It's just, like, you're kind of always working off ideas of things that you've seen, and just kind of hope you can at least present it in a different way.
Right, make it interesting.
Yeah.
And also, hold on. Cyberpunk says, you've got the touch, you've got the power. Yeah, you can beat him good. So if you die right now, I'm just letting you know, somebody believes in you.
Thank you.
What they want to know is, what platform will this be available on, and how long is the game, so they know how long to take off of work.
So we're going to launch simultaneously on PC and PS4. PC will be Windows, Mac, and Linux.
Do that.
You just disappointed a couple people.
I can hear hearts breaking.
Maybe James should play.
They're
When
like,
I get
you
to the
can-
boss,
you can
I'll
do
get to
it.
the boss again, and
Okay.
then you play.
I'll take them down.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
we
so
do-
PC, PS4, the PC will be Windows, Mac, and Linux on launch. We're shooting for Steam and Humble as well, so you have your DRM free and DRM option. And that's it for right now that we've announced.
Cool.
Oh, and game length, we're shooting for at least 8 to 10 hours for your first playthrough. It's kind of hard to say, like, we don't have like the full game put together for, you know, testers to run through yet, so we don't know exactly, but we're definitely shooting for it to be you know, a decently long experience. And then, of course, each time you beat the game, like, you're going to unlock a subsequent difficulty level. And there's also other ways to play it. Like, you can play as what we call mortal character, where if you die, that's it. Like, you really died, and you get a nice tombstone for your icon if you go back to the main menu.
So an Iron Man run, basically.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, no, you're really dead. You're
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
So I think like the hardest achievement probably in the game is going to be playing on the hardest difficulty level, Nightmare, as a mortal character, and if you can get through that, then you will have earned that.
Is that the platinum trophy? Is that the screw you? No one's getting the platinum.
Can you do that? Have you? I mean, it's probably not ready yet, but
Yeah, it's not quite ready yet, but I kind of feel like if it's something I can't do, then maybe it might be too hard, you know, since I just play the game constantly. But
I don't know. There are some crazy people out there who will
Yeah.
master a game way better than anyone.
Yeah, I mean, there's
else.
definitely
It's-
players
yeah.
better than myself. It's a crazy thing. Like, I saw people playing the alpha like a week after it was out. They had already logged 20, 30 hours on it, and they were doing things that like I couldn't even do. So,
What's that experience watching like people play your game on the floor and just watching them play out like alpha, see how they do? Like, how's that been?
it's unreal for sure. It's very strange. I don't know. It's just kind of like one of those things where it doesn't quite you can't quite process it. You know, like you see it and like I'm more just like analyzing, you know, what they're doing rather than being like, wow, this person's like playing my game, enjoying it. I'm like, oh, that's wrong. That needs fixed. We got to fix that art. You know, it's just like you can never. I think as a developer, it's very hard to get away from that like kind of mindset of like, you know, this is this thing I'm making. I got to keep making it better. Like even if people are enjoying it, you're still just overanalyzing everything about it because it can always be better. You know.
So the item that he picked up a little while ago, the magic Molotov, is that something you can put on the circle button as a spell?
Yeah. So so I've got all of these things that I can equip, and so some of the items are magic based, so they use the blue mana. So magic Molotov, which I found earlier, you throw it and it spreads some fire like that.
Got it.
The other one I was using before is the magic knife, which is more of a kind of projectile kind of thing, but it uses up mana, so you have to use that kind of sparingly. These lanterns here, though, will give off some mana, so you can recover that from time to time, but I try to avoid using too much of it because you never know when you're actually really going to need it, and you'll be like, oh crap, I have no
Like
more.
maybe against the boss?
Yeah, there are also some characters that are just hold on, I can't.
Nice.
Yeah, there are some characters that are just definitely better to try to hit from afar.
Mm-hmm.
Probably should have gone up to the left, but let's see. All right,
Yeah,
here's
you're
the boss.
You want to pass it off?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can do
We're
it.
gonna just run over on this like 5-10 minutes, Jeremy, because they
I
want to see.
think we can accept that.
Yeah, they want to see the boss.
All right,
defeated, so.
actually beaten.
Oh. Nice.
That's how you do it.
I just stay away for as long as possible, and then
making me look
Colonel
so
Link
bad.
said, "I saw the Castlevania dagger. Are there other sub weapons? And how many sub weapons can you buy?"
so right now there's 8 or 9 I think we're going with. We're trying to make sure they're all very unique. You know, like we didn't want to combine functionality because like at first we're like, oh yeah, we can make knives and fireballs, and the fireballs fly just straight on like knives. You know, so it's like we're trying to make sure each one has its own use. You know, like if there's something below you, you can use those Molotovs that you saw because they kind of have that downward arc versus something that's kind of farther away.
Nice.
There we go.
Man, you made me look really pathetic. I was like, yeah, this is not that
Well,
hard.
I've played it a million times.
Yeah. So have I, though.
So this is the scavenger that we found and unlocked. So he'll be in these rooms from now on,
Okay, cool.
and he's got a little shop here.
This is something that is just being raised in the chat that you guys probably would want to address. Internia says, seeing one of the developers have trouble with the boss raises the question, is this a typical playthrough? What kind of strategic options might be available in this time for the player? And could you go back to the town to return to your setup for a different tactic in that fight? Well, I think you might want to first say that he hasn't really developed.
Yeah, so
this
I'm not the developer. I'm more on the business marketing side of things. So,
Yeah, so-
so I do play, but it's not like I design the levels and design the bosses. That said, I have played that boss probably like 50 times, so I have no good excuse other than we'll just blame the cameras and everything, like the whole world and the whole internet watching me. But yeah, there's one of the things. So we rescued the scavenger, and he was in the room with the campfire, which is a save point. So you can always go back to the save point and try again, and you'll kind of know the path the second time around. But another character that you can find and unlock is there's a bird that can fly you back to the center of town, and when you go back to the center of town, you can buy extra potions. You can go to the blacksmith and buy some new weapons there. Also, the scavenger can sell you some stuff. So if you encounter a boss that's really giving you trouble, you can go around and try to collect more money, more coins, and things like that, so that you can then buy better equipment, and it'll give you a better chance at beating the boss.
So what was that you just did? You feel open to learning.
Oh, okay. So there's